Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today's Wildcard Sunday, where we do something a little bit different, a little bit off the beaten path from our regularly scheduled videos and artists during the week. This one's a little bit different today in that it's not even an actual comic or an actual project that is scheduled or coming out or anything like that. What we're doing is taking a look at I guess what I would describe as an Alex Ross sketchbook project. I originally thought this might have been an actual proposal that he made, but it actually isn't. I found out, and you'll find out when I go through some of the text in some of the pages we'll be looking at. But just such a cool idea, and just something that, a guy like Alex Ross, who's an amazing artist, very popular, who's been around, since the early 90s. I've always loved his artwork. I like all sorts of artists. He's more of a kind of illustrative, realism kind of artist versus someone, like maybe Sam Keith, who's more of an expressionist. I like all sorts of range of art, and I can appreciate all sorts of range of art, especially in comic books. That's what's great about comic books, is you get all these different kind of interpretations. And Alex Ross is definitely someone who hit the mark with a lot of at least mainstream superhero fans, and has had quite a career over, the last 30 odd years. Makes a lot of coin, and good for him. Congratulations. He's managed his career well. And I mean, in spite of that, if you look at some videos with Alex Ross, I think most of his days are spent drawing and painting. That's really all he does. With all the work he probably has to do, he still finds time to do like these sketchbook projects, which is what we're going to be looking at today. Before I actually introduce kind of that project, I want to go over a little bit of just kind of over the years Alex Ross's representation of characters, and specifically in this case Batman, and how it's changed a little bit over the years. So the image in front of you right now is probably what you imagine when you think of Alex Ross doing Batman, kind of the classic, fairly long-eared Batman, kind of like the movie, kind of like Neil Adams. Fairly realistic representation. The cape is meant to be kind of leathery texture, I guess, and the costume has cloth. So, because he's trying to go, or around this time, he's going for that realistic vibe. Realism, he draws costumes as if they would look in the real world. So it's almost like his characters are wearing spandex, and even though his characters are very muscular as they're superheroes, you don't really see all that definition like you would in a typical, pen and ink comic book. So to have another example of that, just real quick, up close representation here. So you can see things like, trying to make it a little more realistic. The gauntlets are probably a little harder here, thicker, as you can tell from the rim here, from the texture of it. And as I said, you can tell that Batman's obviously heavily muscled, but you don't get all the sinew and definition of all the muscles, and you get folds as if he's wearing some sort of spandex or cloth, right? So again, that realism kind of vibe that Alex Ross is known for. Something happened in maybe the last decade, I guess, of Alex Ross and the way he represents superheroes and Batman more specifically. So if we look over here, this is kind of what he's been kind of doing a little bit differently recently, where now he's kind of going maybe more for a Neil Adams kind of modeled Batman, right? He's got the circle is back around the bat signal, and I'm talking mostly about the representation. So the face is pretty similar, although the jaw maybe is squared out a little bit, and you've got really long, don't mind that noise if you can hear that, there's construction going on out here. Hopefully that won't pick up on the mic and won't bother you guys too much. So he's got the Neil Adams long-ear Batman, and the costume representations maybe more what we're used to seeing in the 70s and 80s with Batman, kind of the typical image we have in our head. Maybe a bit of Jim Aparo in there as well, and the fact that now the cowl is not so much black but blue like it was in the comics around those 2 decades, and even the costume here, which is gray, it gets a bit of a tint of blue here. And also when you look at the costume, even though the gloves still maybe look like cloth and have folds and stuff, the actual kind of spandex part of the costume has become a little more kind of like typical superhero comics, not quite as realistic in the folds and stuff, but more of a muscular representation, as again, like you get with traditional pen and ink superhero comic books, right? Here's another good example where, this is less Batman maybe as a vigilante and more Batman as like a superhero, I guess is how I'd kind of coin it. And once again, he's really not going with the black, but relying more heavily on the blue, and even what part of the costume usually is gray is more blue. So it's almost like kind of a mishmash of 70s, 80s Batman, and maybe the Batman 89 movie costume is kind of where the inspiration's coming from. I don't know for sure. You know, obviously here he's not going for specifically a realistic representation, more of an idyllic representation, I guess, or iconic representation is how I describe it. Great painting, but very different from his previous style and how he was doing Batman. So I'm starting off by showing you this stuff just to show you in relation to the specific project and the sketchbook project rather that Alex Ross has worked on. So we'll go to the beginning. You're getting a quick glimpse there. And this is what we're going to be looking at, where basically Alex Ross has kind of elaborated this, you know, fictitious project that never existed. And the basic concept is, what if Kirby had drawn Batman when he went to DC in the 1970s and did the New Gods and Demon and Kamandi and all that stuff? So what if, you know, one of the series he had taken over at that point would have been Batman? And what would that kind of look like? So that's kind of the impetus behind these sketches and this text that we're going to be looking through today. And this project that, like I said, doesn't exist, is not a proposal. Man, when Alex Jones, excuse me, oh. The kind of project that, you know, when Alex Ross does something like this, anything he puts out really sells really well, right? The last thing I reviewed from his is Full Circle, and that sold really well and was very popular. He even had an expanded edition. So, you know, if Alex Ross wants to do something, you should probably say yes. And it's probably going to sell really well. So if ever for any reason this was, you know, even if it was just like a one shot or something, I would love to see this. Now, this first image here is basically, you know, what maybe Kirby would do with the traditional kind of Batman look. Looks very kind of Dark Knight Returns here, kind of Frank Miller inspired Batman, with some curvy swerves and shadows on the face and some squiggle lines. So Alex Ross kind of created this in his sketchbook. It's basically, the idea is, what if when Kirby went to DC in the 70s and did the New Gods and Forever People, Mr. Miracle, Kamandi, the Demon, all that stuff, what if one of the series he had taken over was Batman? And what would that look like? That's the basic concept. Listen, I really enjoy Alex Ross and I love Jack Kirby, so the mix of the two is just awesome. And as you'll see, Alex Ross just has this really, he's very gifted as an artist, but also as a historian, and all that kind of works towards, you know, when he works in someone else's style or designs things, he's just very good at it and very adept at it, you know, not just because of his, again, his artistic skill, but the history he knows about comics and the thought he puts behind these concepts. That's what's interesting, is the amount of thought, you know, and history he looks at to create these designs and these ideas. And in this case, again, just for a simple sketchbook project, not even anything he's actually proposing. He's just, I guess he's just doing this for fun when he has very little free time off from his actual, you know, paying gigs that he's doing. So he still finds time to come up with cool, interesting stuff, just like we do in our sketchbooks, just like any artist does. You know, usually has a backlog of stuff that hasn't been published, hasn't, you know, was not paid for, basically. So this is one of those examples from Alex Ross, so it's really nice to see. Let's, you know, this first page kind of just gives us Jack Kirby doing, you know, just regular old Batman here. You can kind of tell by the black shadows and stuff, the Kirby style, the squiggly lines. Kind of looks like a Frank Miller type Batman. It's going to be a little bit different in the rest of the images here. But once this came out online a few months ago, I kind of went crazy. I thought it looked great. I was really into it. I would love to see this project, even if it's just like a one shot or something. That would be awesome. But I don't really think it's ever going to get made. So wishful thinking. But we do have these pages here that we can look at, and that's why we're looking at that today on Wildcard Sunday. So that is the intro kind of illustration. Let's move on. So I don't know exactly which order these are in. I'm not sure these are in the order they're meant to be presented. There's some text which I will read because it's very interesting, gives you some insight into Alex Ross's thought process in creating this stuff. Some of the text gets cut off, right? I don't know if I have all the pages and all the art, but this is what I could gather real quick from the internet to be able to shoot this video today. So we'll move on to the first image. All right. So this is kind of a presentation page that gives you kind of the basic look of Batman here, which, if you look at the face, is kind of a mix of, I would say, Dick Sprang, Jack Kirby, and Bruce Timm. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting here. It's very Kirby, but there's a slightly more cartoony kind of feel to the art, which makes me think of Bruce Timm. And the actual design of the Batman cowl is, you know, the way the nose is designed, the eyes are designed. is very Dick Sprang, but you'll notice that he kind of changed the mask up just a little bit here to give it kind of a, I think it's cool. It's an interesting design I've never really seen on Batman. Kind of reminds me of Dark Claw a little bit, but not quite as 90s and busy and complicated as Dark Claw is. But again, I want to talk about the Dick Sprang kind of aspect of this, and we'll come back. So when I was showing you those paintings at the very beginning, right, these ones, also Alex Ross created a few kind of anniversary issue covers, paintings, illustrations, where he is, once again in this case, channeling Dick Sprang, specifically in Dick Sprang's art style from the 1940s, right? If you know about Dick Sprang, you could probably see it very clearly here. There's something a little weird, though, in the representation, although it's still great art. I think it's really fun. There's a bit of an uncanny valley, I think, when it comes down to the musculature, right? Which is just hyper real and kind of a bodybuilder physique, right? Which makes sense for superheroes. But again, Alex Ross kind of doing the opposite of what he usually does, where, you know, the costumes are made of cloth and you can see the folds and stuff. Here, he's really going for like a comic book representation where you can see all the muscle, sinew, and veins through the costume, right? It's been said before that superheroes are basically just kind of running around naked in their underwear with painted on costumes. So that's definitely the look he's going with here, again, where you could see all the muscle and the sinew and the veins. So it just, again, maybe not so obvious in this one here. I also like the Dick Sprang like spikes on the side of the gauntlets, the gloves here. But then if we pull in a bit closer on this image, just there's a bit of, I love Alex Ross, but this just looks kind of odd to me and a little bit uncanny valley-ish. Batman, I don't think has ever looked more psychotic personally than in this image here, that big weird grin he's got. And again, you can look at the representation of the muscles through the costume. So you get a bit folds here at the wrist, but I mean, most of this is what someone looks like when they're oiled up for, again, a bodybuilding competition, right? And you can see all the muscle and the sinew and the tendons and stuff. So again, he's going for kind of an extreme musculature and superhero representation, like in comic books, how it's been traditionally, where, again, you don't really see the seams in the costume and stuff. It's more like painted on costumes. And Robin, again, for a 13, 14-year-old boy, is just insanely jacked and looks kind of odd to me as well. So, I'm starting to, go too deep into this. I'm thinking like, wow, Batman's feeding Robin steroids and human growth hormone at a way too young of an age. But of course, this is all make-believe, so I don't think any of that's going on for real, because none of this is real. But wanted to show you this representation because I definitely think some of that Dick Sprang influence works itself into those Kirby designs. And Alex Ross in one of the texts does actually mention it too, so makes sense. So we'll go back to that original image. Oops, this one here. So you can see also kind of reinterpreted villains here. You've got the Joker. Two-Face looks pretty traditional. Catwoman looks the same. It's just the way he's interpreting the costume and the Kirby black spaces and swirls and stuff just make it look more interesting and more animated. Penguin, very kind of garish and monster-like, which is cool. He's just exaggerated his features, right, to make him look scarier. Poison Ivy, quite a different look, but inspired by, I think, this story that Jack Kirby did for DC. I don't remember the title. It was only published once. And there's like this green witch kind of character in it, where I think Alex Ross got the inspiration for that. And Clayface over here. So we'll look at more up-close details and more images of these characters. Before that, though, I'll read the text here just to give you an idea of the thought process Alex Ross is putting into this. Various classic villains could dominate a book like this one, but I pictured Jack Kirby honoring that and also moving into his own territory. So what he's saying is like, he would use the old characters, but kind of, interpret them in his style, as you can see here. His history wasn't to always discard the established lore around a character he didn't invent, but he would often overtake the work with his vision. Jack's potential for the Batman mythos is nothing I bothered to think of until it was a passing obsession for me to play with, and he created, again, this whole concept. There's no greater plan here other than it was fun to draw and ink in imitation of one of my heroes. But also, not just drawing, but, kind of thinking like Jack Kirby and getting into the mind of Jack Kirby and his thought process, right? So, how close to what Jack Kirby would have actually done is this? I don't know, but it's certainly authentic to what Jack Kirby did, I think, even though it's not by his hand. So here's another cool shot here. I like a lot of shadows on the costume. You know, Kirby was known with Superman and other superheroes sometimes to get the logos a little off model. So that there's an example of that with the bat signal. And overall here, the cape is not actually attached, right? He's supposed to be holding it with his hands, I guess, but it gives it a really kind of bat wing look and really kind of a Dracula look is how I describe it here. And you'll notice he's got those scars on his face. We'll talk about that. Alex Ross will talk about that when I read the text. His ideas on that, and I think that looks pretty cool. Actually, it gives Batman like a new kind of thing without it being any different from what came before. So yeah, you can see up close here, Batman's mask is a little bit different, right? It comes down, doesn't stop at the nose, comes down to the top lip, and creates kind of these two fangs on the side there, which I think look cool. Again, help reinforce that kind of bat-like Dracula vampire kind of look, right? That Batman always has. A lot of inspiration for Batman, I think, comes from Dracula, right? And then you see the Bruce Wayne face, which he's taken a bit of inspiration from Marv, it seems, with the bandages. There's a bit of a definitely Jack Kirby look, but also a Bruce Timm look, I think, to Bruce Wayne here. And again, you can see the scars, you know, from years of crime fighting, I guess, that Bruce Wayne would have on his face. And this is the interpretation of the Joker, quite more monstrous, at least when he smiles and laughs here. I don't know if the inspiration for the dark, I don't know if it's makeup or whatever it is around the eyes came from Heath Ledger or not. But, you know, I would tend to think it comes from there. The crazy hair, a little longer, kind of 70s-ish hair rather than because of that time period. And I like this idea, like, you see how the Joker can look, you know, he's not smiling, he's not, and you've got kind of this line coming up here, almost like the Crow. You could think it's makeup. But what it actually is his mouth does open up that wide when he laughs. So it's, you know, a lot more gory and scarier when he opens up his mouth here. And, you know, you wonder, is that because he cut the sides of his mouth like Heath Ledger did, possibly? I don't know, but definitely a cool, you know, definitely the Joker, but definitely taking it into new territory and trying different things with it that I think are awesome. So here you can really see how I was pulling from Dick Sprang's 50s definition of the character. I was looking for what bold choices Jack might have made with the costume if given full reign. I ultimately determined they wouldn't go so boldly different, preferring that his rendering made it his and therefore new. Yeah, the way he draws makes it Kirby and makes it different, right? The old uncontained black bat chest emblem was more of an obsession, and that's where the text ends. So he was trying different kind of logos here. So more the traditional one here, but where the cape comes out from the bat symbol, just like the Batman movie, right? With 89, with the Tim Burton Batman movie. And Michael Keaton is the name, with Michael Keaton. So I'm assuming here he would make it bigger and the yellow would kind of cover the whole chest. Here's another example where, man, the yellow just got really big and is actually overtaking his shoulder and his arm. So different, you know, designs that he's trying out that could look interesting. But yeah, maybe this is a bit too far off from, you know, the original Batman model. Here's another shot where I feel that, you know, with the dark inks and stuff, kind of looks like Dracula, like a vampire. Heavier blacks being put into the whole figure was possible without leaning into a full black costume like Black Bolt and Black Panther, which have both been theorized that he designed, Jack Kirby did, to cash in on the Batman TV show's arrival in 1966. I don't know about that, but maybe. I mainly applied the notion of a fanged mask expansion as a bold enough change. That's the vampire kind of look. This kind of upper lip mask covering is similar to a Green Hornet mask variation. The effect plants an aggressive quality on point with Adams' elongated ears, right? So he's comparing, you know, the fact that Neil Adams came in, changed Batman, made the ears very long. This would be a change kind of along those lines as well. The extra scar impressions on his still exposed jawline suggest that he takes on regular damage for his brutal lifestyle. Bruce Wayne may be a figure who would need to recede from public view with the injuries he regularly sustains. What I thought of too is, you know, it could be an interesting thing where, just kind of a story aspect, where Bruce Wayne actually wears, you know, makeup and stuff to cover up those scars when he goes in public. So he can still be a public figure, but, you know, Alfred would help him out with makeup before he does these public appearances or something like that, you know? It does inspire kind of story beats when I read about this stuff. So took an approach. The top has been cut off there, so I'm not quite sure what it says. did actually come to the character through talents like Frank Miller and Bruce Timm. So I think he's saying that bulkier, Dick Sprang, short-eared, kind of big bruiser Batman was really, popularized by Frank Miller and Bruce Timm. Frank's take on Batman in the Dark Knight series was mostly Dick Sprang infused with a lot of Kirby's DNA attached. I've heard that before. The Dark Knight is kind of like Frank Miller doing Kirby Batman. I could see that for sure. Definitely has more of a Kirby physique. The Batman animated series spawned comics that Bruce Timm illustrated stories for, which heavily featured Jack's figure drawing influence. So in a way, this kind of idea has been realized already. I wasn't making a project proposal here with my efforts. DC will not be getting this from me, and it does seem an odd choice for my style to veer this far away from what I'm known for. The possibilities of what if or what could have been are simply engaging, so he just enjoys having fun with that stuff. Walking in the footsteps of others is also a fun exercise. Kirby's cool. He certainly is. Like how he adds the square nails to Batman here, the Kirby kind of nails. Very cool. So we have some more designs here, different variations, kind of different interpretation of the cape, which is interesting here. You've got the Kirby kind of New Gods 70s belt here, which is cool. Another kind of bat design logo he's trying here. So close-ups of Two-Face and Penguin. Two-Face does look a lot to me like the animated series version. So not much of a difference there. The Penguin just looks more monstery and grotesque, I guess. Another shot of the Joker there. And these are just some extra pictures I took myself. So we've seen this image here. Here's one of Batwoman. I don't have the head to toe. Gives you an idea. More of a New Gods kind of flavor to Batwoman, right? This would be kind of a Mr. Mxyzptlk character, Bat fan. So one of Batman's fans. Huge Batman fan, but when he gets involved in their stories, kind of causes mayhem and chaos for Batman. So kind of a comedy bent to this guy here. Batman costume, who stalks Batman, looking to join him with his own cleverly made paint bombs and such, could add a lightening up to the darker mood. So yeah, comedic relief is what this character is for, and definitely inspired by one of the characters, I think, from the Dingbats of something street. I forget the name of the street, but that comic that came out was just a one-shot in the 70s that he did for DC. One of the characters in there, definitely the inspiration for this guy here, I think. Another cool kind of Dracula-like shot of Batman. Nice moody dark shot here. Yeah, the text here, there's so much missing, I'm not going to read it. And there you go. That's our Sunday review of Alex Ross's sketchbook project, What If Kirby Had Drawn Batman at DC in the 70s. Really cool kind of idea. What if? I'd love to see a book. As I said, I don't think it'll ever happen. But, this is what we have here, these sketches and a bit of text. So better than nothing. Thought I'd look at that today, review it, something I really enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed it too. If you are subscribed to the channel, you're still watching videos, I thank you for your loyalty. I appreciate it. Thanks for sticking around. If you're not subscribed but you're watching videos, please do so. It only takes a second down here. It really helps out the channel, helps get us out there to other like-minded people who are into the same kind of stuff we are, namely comic books. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Everyone go out there and have an awesome day.
Like! Subscribe! Like! Subscribe!
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.